regarding your username and password from the university. The dates are, I hope that very clear to all: 10, 11, 12, and the rules and regulations of the mock test as well as the final test, which will be conducted by the university. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So the mock test which will be conducted now, and the external examination which will be conducted later on by the university, so related to that, we had received a video from the controller of examination, University of Pune, and we have forwarded that video to you. I hope that everyone has gone through with that video very carefully. There were rules and regulations explained. What are the do's and don'ts of your online examination? That is also explained. In case, in case, if you face any problem related to your online examination or related to your mock examination also, the numbers are also shared where you can contact in case of any query, in case of any problem. As the online exams are totally controlled by the university, we do not have any authority over the online examination. So if your online examinations have started and you are facing some problem, please write down the helpline numbers which is provided and contact on those helpline numbers. They have mentioned that if you are unable to appear for an examination because of some valid reason, what is the time period which is to be followed to inform the university about that problem. And if your problem is genuine, definitely it will be taken care of. But if you raise your query after 5 days, your request, your query will not be accepted by the university. So everything, all the rules and regulations are made very clear in the video by the controller of examination or chief of examination, University of Pune. So I hope that everyone is clear with that. If you have not understood anything, please ask, or otherwise we will start with the session.
Okay, sir.
Yes, I hope that you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So elements of good corporate governance. Yesterday we had discussed the meaning of corporate governance, then scope of corporate governance. So today we will start with the elements of good corporate governance. What are the elements which are required to be present if we are expecting good corporate governance in a country? So first one, these are very simple elements which are to be present. If these elements are not present, we cannot say that the corporate governance is transparent or is clear. So, first element of good corporate governance is rule of law. Very simple. Rule of law means that rules are to be followed and rules are being followed by the company. That is called as rule of law. Very simple. Why rules are prepared under various laws? The very simple reason is that they are to be followed by the company. If rules are made by the government and if those rules are not followed, we cannot say there is rule of law. Rule of law means law is created and that law is accepted and implemented and practiced by the organization. If the organization are following all the rules, they are acting in accordance with those rules, then we can say that yes, there is rule of law. So first element is that rule of law. Whatever the law is saying, that balance sheet should be prepared like this. Balance sheet should be shared with all the stakeholders. The appointment of the directors to the board should be in this manner. So all these rules which are related to the corporate governance should be followed. If all these rules are followed, we can say that it is rule of law. Next one is transparency. Transparency should be there. Fair practices should be there practiced in the organizations. Everything should be transparent. Everything should be clear. Everything should be equal. Equal opportunities should be given to all the employees for growth in the organization. All the practices related to the say if the organization is has earned profit, how much profit the organization has earned should be shared with all the stakeholders. The uh, if the organization is planning for expansion, that again should be shared with everyone. The say promotion rules of the organization should be known to each and everyone, that these are the rules. If I follow these rules or if I complete these parameters, then I can be eligible for then I am eligible for promotion in the organization. So every practice which the organization is carrying out should be carried out in a transparent manner. It should not happen that some parameters are not known to the employees of the organization, to the stakeholders of the organization. So all the parameters should be known to the stakeholders. Next one is responsiveness. Responsiveness means responding to a particular situation. How you respond to a particular situation. That is responsiveness. Now, suppose if a complaint is raised against a higher position employee by a shareholder or by any of the stakeholders, somebody has brought to notice that a director in the board is taking bribe, is taking bribe for issuing particular contracts. So if this or any director or the highest position official is into some malpractice, if this is brought to the notice of the highest authority, then immediately the action should be taken, or inquiry should be initiated to find out whether the complaint is correct or not. And if the complaint is found to be true, then action should be taken against that particular person. So that is called as responsiveness. How the organization is responding to a situation where somebody has filed a complaint. It should not happen that the person against whom the complaint has been filed is CEO of the organization or managing director of the organization, as the person is the highest position. So no action is initiated against that person. It should not happen. If it is happening, then we can say that it is not good corporate governance. Good corporate governance means responsiveness also. So responsiveness is responding, how you are responding to a particular situation. Next one is consensus oriented. Now, everyone of you is aware of the meaning of consensus. Consensus oriented. That means unanimously it should be the most of the decisions, or the top decisions, or the most important decisions taken by the company should be unanimously taken, or should be taken at least by the majority. And that is called as consensus oriented. Now, suppose if the organization has decided that it wants to diversify its business. Now, this decision of diversification should be taken on the basis of consensus. It should be taken at least by the majority of board members. Then only the organization should proceed for diversification. It should not happen that CEO of the organization is single-handedly taking that decision, and later on he is bringing it to the notice of the board of directors, and board of directors simply agreeing to that decision because his decision is considered as the final decision. It should not happen. If this happens, then we can say there is no consensus in the organization. Now, the next one is equity and inclusiveness. Equity means equality. Everyone in the organization should be treated equally. So that equality should be given to each and every stakeholder of the organization. Effectiveness and efficiency. Now, effectiveness and efficiency, it will be there in the organization only if the practices the organization is implementing in the organization are transparent, are as per the rule of law. Then we can say that there will be effectiveness and efficiency. If rules are laid down by the organization, but these rules are compromised for some people, then there cannot be effectiveness and efficiency. The rule for promotion laid down by the organization is that in this organization, if a person wants to be promoted, this promotion is solely based on the performance of the person and not on the tenure of the person in the organization, which is also called as merit based promotion, performance based promotion. Now, this is the rule which is written in the organization. When it comes to the actual promotions or performance appraisal, there is an employee who is very close to one of the member of board of directors, but the person or the employee is not a very, his performance is not very good, his performance is average. So the rule says that promotion will be given only on the basis of your performance. But as the person is very close to the highest position official of the board, the person is promoted. If such thing takes place, if such practices are implemented in the organization which overrule their own written rules, such organization cannot be called as effective and efficient. Because in the long run, what is going to happen? For a short term, yes, as the board member was having authority, he signed on the letter declaring promotion to his relative. But the after effects will be what? That the efficient people, that the employees who feel that my performance was superior than that particular performance, but still that person got promoted only because of his closeness, not because of his performance. So this feeling is going to demotivate the good performers also. So good performers in the organization, they will start feeling that if we are close to the highest position, then only we have uh, we can be promoted, we can expect promotion in this organization, otherwise not. So if such practices are practiced in the organization, then we can say there is no effectiveness and efficiency in the organization. Now the next one is accountability. Again, it is very important. Now this term accountability is included after the recommendations of various committees. The term accountability was included after the findings of various cases, various scams that has taken place. The scam related to securities in 1992, that is the Harshad Mehta scam. After that, there were n number of changes made in the structure of corporate governance. And one of the most important term which is included was accountability. Now here, the highest position are held accountable if anything goes wrong in the organization. If a wrong balance sheet is created by the accounts department, the person who has created the balance sheet or who has manipulated with the figures in the balance sheet is held accountable for that fault, and strict action is taken against that person. So it doesn't matter whether the person is at the lowest level, middle level, or at the highest level. Accountability is there with the person who is dealing with such delicate things. Preparing balance sheet is very, very important for the organization, because on the basis of this balance sheet, the organization will be able to raise capital. If they are planning to sell their shares in the market, this balance sheet will definitely play a very important role, because the shareholders get attracted to the company which shows consistency in profits. They are not attracted to a company which is showing that for 2 years the company was in profit, again for 3 years the company was into loss, again 2 years the company was in profit, again 1 year the company is in loss. If such inconsistent performance is there of a company, then very few shareholders will invest their money or they will buy shares of that particular company. So every company wants to show profits in the balance sheet, but without any manipulation. If somebody is doing manipulation and if it is found, then that person is held responsible. Not only a heavy penalty is imposed on that person, but that person is put behind bars also. And the best example was Mr. Ramlinga Raju. Not only his companies were penalized, but he was the person, as he was the person who gave instructions to the accounts department regarding manipulations. So he was not only penalized heavily, but he was also put behind bars. जेल की सजा भी दी गई. क्यों दी गई? Because he was the person who was held accountable. So accountability is very important now. Now, why this accountability is included? Just to make the corporate governance structure more and more transparent. This is the person who is accountable for preparing balance sheets. If anything goes wrong, he should take that responsibility and he will be held not only responsible but also accountable for that particular fault, and strict action will be taken against that particular person. That is why the internal audit takes place, then external audit takes place, and finally the audit by independent directors of the company also takes place. And after going through with these various audits, then finally the balance sheet of the company is published. Last one is participation. Participation here means that participation of all. All means that earlier, earlier there were no fixed percentage or no fixed numbers, that if a person who owns the company, how many directors will be appointed to the board from that particular person's family and how many will be from the experts or from the government side. But after various committees recommendations, now we will be discussing about the various committees also. Now it is fixed, the percentage is fixed, that this many percentage can be included from the owner's side and these many are from the government side or will be the external experts. So that is participation. Now this amendment or these changes are made just to keep the interest of the stakeholders or all the stakeholders intact. एक ही फैमिली के हाथ में अगर पूरा पावर रहा, Mr. A, who owns the organization, if all the powers are in the hands of Mr. A, there are more chances that he is going to take decision which are going to benefit him only or his family only. He will not be taking care of the other stakeholders. But if more people are from the outside the organization, who are appointed by the government or who are the external experts, then there are more chances that the interest of all the stakeholders will be taken care of. So that was related to the elements of good corporate governance. Now, need for good corporate governance, I'll just read out the uh, uh, information which is written on the slide, and then we will discuss. Without efficient companies or business enterprises, no country will create wealth or employment. Without investment, companies will stagnate and collapse. If business enterprises do not prosper, there will be no economic growth, no employment, no taxes paid, and invariably the country will not develop. Any particular country needs well governed and managed business enterprises that can attract investments, create jobs and wealth, and remain viable, sustainable, and competitive in the global marketplace. Good corporate governance, therefore, becomes a prerequisite for national economic development. So, there are two things in two paragraphs. First one, need for good corporate governance. That without industry, the country is not able to progress. अगर इंडस्ट्री नहीं रहेगी किसी भी कंट्री में, तो वो ऑर्गेनाइज कंट्री प्रोग्रेस नहीं कर सकती. दैट इज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. अब सेकंड पार्ट में क्या है कि इंडस्ट्री होनी चाहिए, वेरी गुड, बट देयर हैज टू बी सम रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस, and the industry should follow those rules and regulations for making itself prosper and for making the country also prosper. So that is the need of good corporate governance. Now we will come to the committees, that how changes in corporate governance rules, or we can say guidelines, takes place. So these changes in the rules or changes in the guidelines of corporate governance, they often take place on the recommendation of various committees, which are of course created by the government. Now the first committee is called as the Cadbury Committee. Cadbury Committee, what it has done, that we will be discussing. The effectiveness of first recommendation is the effectiveness of board is observed by its regular meeting, full control over the company, and check over the executive management. So effectiveness of board is observed by its regular meeting. Now the charter of board means rules and regulations for the board. जैसे कंपनी के लिए रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस होते हैं, वैसे ही बोर्ड के लिए भी रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस होते हैं. तो बोर्ड का रूल और रेगुलेशन क्या हो सकता है कि कितनी बार बोर्ड की मीटिंग होनी चाहिए. हर महीने एक बार बोर्ड की मीटिंग होनी चाहिए, 2 महीने में एक बार होनी चाहिए, 4 महीने में एक बार होनी चाहिए, 3 महीने में एक बार होनी चाहिए, या 6 महीने में. जो भी वहां पर रूल है, दैट रूल इज टू बी फॉलो. 3 महीने में एक बार तो 3 महीने में एक बार होनी ही चाहिए. उस मीटिंग में सारे बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स प्रेजेंट होने चाहिए. बिकॉज ऑफ सम इमरजेंसी, one or two may be absent, but majority should be present, and the organization should see to it that all are present. Next one, the chairman should be strong and independent rather than yes man. Again, very simple but very effective recommendation, which says the chairman should be strong and independent rather than yes man. The chairman of the board should be strong and independent rather than yes man. सिर्फ सबने यस बोला इसीलिए चेयरमैन ने भी यस बोला, या जिस बोर्ड मेंबर, जो फैमिली बोर्ड मेंबर है, उसके पास ज्यादा शेयर्स है, ज्यादा पावरफुल है, इसीलिए वो जो भी बोलता है बाकी सब उसमें हाँ में हाँ मिलाते हैं, तो दैट इज नॉट इफेक्टिव बोर्ड. इफेक्टिव बोर्ड मीन्स वेयर the chairman and members are having a say in the decision. So it is said that the chairman should be strong enough, and he should not be a yes man only. कि जो भी डिसीजन लिया गया है यस, ये है यस, वो है यस, नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. जो भी डिसीजन लिया गया है वो डिसीजन सही है या गलत है, वो डिसीजन सबके हित में है या सिर्फ कुछ लोगों के हित में है, ये समझ के उस डिसीजन को लेना, दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. Non-executive directors should play a significant role in the board decisions. Non-executive directors, type of directors, there we will be discussing who are called as executive directors, who are non-executive directors. In simple words, we can say the senior people who are working in the organization and who are also part of the board, they are called as executive directors. And the board members who are only are members of the board and who are not working at the highest places, positions in the organizations, or who are not interfering in the day-to-day working of the organization, these people are called as non-executive directors. If directors need advice for their duties, then there should be a procedure of professional help at the company's expense. Again, very simple but very effective. It is not that the directors are having knowledge of everything. Now, for example, the company is planning for diversification. Presently, the company is in the, say, food packaging sector, and now the company wants to diversify itself in some other thing. It can be manufacturing of, say, some beauty products. Now the directors who on the board of the company, who are knowledge related to food processing industry or food industry, if some of them are not having knowledge related to that beauty industry, then before taking the decision there has to be a provision that they can talk to the experts in that particular industry, whether this diversification will be viable for the company or not. What are the risks involved in this decision of diversification into in that beauty products? And that suggestions, they can call the experts to their meeting, and they can take suggestions from these experts before finalizing the decision. Now, if those experts are charging heavy fees for giving their valuable advice to the board members, then everything, whatever that they are charging, should be borne by the company. So that provision should be there कि अगर बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स को कुछ चीजें समझ में नहीं आ रही है और वो समझने के लिए अगर वो किसी एक्सटर्नल एक्सपर्ट की सहायता लेते हैं, उसके लिए वो एक्सटर्नल एक्सपर्ट को जो उसकी फीस है वो देते हैं, तो इन दैट केस दैट फीस sorry should be given by the company and not by the particular directors. Next one, director service contract should not exceed 3 days without shareholders approval. एक डायरेक्टर जो अपॉइंट किया गया है, वो डायरेक्टर का जो टेन्योर है वो 3 साल का होना चाहिए, 3 साल से अधिक नहीं। 3 साल से अगर ज्यादा बढ़ाना है उसको, तो इट इज टू बी अप्रूव्ड बाय द शेयर होल्डर्स, नॉट बाय द बोर्ड बट बाय द शेयर होल्डर्स. नेक्स्ट वन, there should be full and clear disclosure of total emoluments, pensions, stock options of executive directors and the chairman. The general manager, the CEO, the COO, or the top officials of the organization, their total emoluments, that means their salary, their incentives, their benefits, all inclusive, should be known to the entire board, that this is the package given to the CEO of the organization. His salary is this much. Apart from salary, these many shares of the company are given to this particular person, the CEO of the organization. Then these many incentives are being given to the this CEO of the organization. So everything should be disclosed properly, and it should be clear. It should be properly communicated to all the shareholders, sorry, stakeholders. Next one, the main duty of the board is to assess and present company's actual position, whether the company is in profit, whether the company is in loss, whatever the actual position is, that actual position should be brought before the stakeholders. It should not happen that for the last 3 years, last 5 years, last 6 years, last 10 years, the company was earning profit. But in the 11th year, the company is into loss. Now, as for the last 10 years, the company was in profit, the board of directors feel that if we share the information with all the stakeholders or with the shareholders, that this year the company could not earn profit, the company has suffered loss, this will dent the image of the company. So, to protect the image of the company, if they are trying to hide the figures or the information that this year the company has suffered loss, then it is not accepted at all. Whatever the position is, that for the last 10 years we were earning profit, this year because of this we have suffered loss, but next year again we are planning to improve, again we will be earning profits. So whatever the real picture is, that picture is to be shown to all the stakeholders, and most important stakeholders here are considered shareholders. So shareholders should be given the correct information. Let them then decide whether they want to invest their money in this company or not. Next one, the board and auditors should maintain a good professional relationship. The board and auditors should maintain a good Professional relationship, very important. Auditors play a very important role, or we can say the most important role in corporate governance is played by the auditors, because they are the people who approve the balance sheets prepared by the finance department of the company. They check thoroughly, they check with minute details if there are any manipulations or not, if all the figures mentioned in the balance sheet are correct or not. So these people are considered as the most important people in corporate governance. Now, there has to be good professional relationship between the board and the auditors. Auditors should be independent. They should be impartial. So when the auditor is sharing the balance sheet with the board, it should not happen that auditor is under the or is scared to present the balance sheet in front of the board, because he knows that this year the company could not earn profit, and he will be sharing the loss making balance sheet or loss wali balance sheet. For the last 10 years, as the company has seen only profits, profits and profits, they are not going to absorb this very easily, and he may lose his job of auditor or position of auditor. If that is the case, if that is the situation, we can say that there doesn't exist good professional relationship between the board and the auditor. The board should be so open that whatever is true, whether profit, whether loss, it doesn't matter. Whatever is correct, that only should be shared by the auditor to the board. If this is the picture, then we can say that there is a good professional relationship. दोनों प्रोफेशनल मतलब क्या, जब हम अपना काम जो भी रूल है उसके हिसाब से करते हैं, कोई पार्शियलिटी नहीं है उसमें, कोई गलत तरीका नहीं अपनाते हैं, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्रोफेशनल। ऑडिटर का प्रोफेशनल कब होगा ऑडिटर, जब वो अपना काम अच्छे से कर रहा है, जो गलत है वो सीधा सीधा बोर्ड के सामने पेश कर रहा है कि ये गलत है, इस यहाँ पर ये गलत एंट्री हुई, यहाँ पर ये जो फिगर था इस फिगर की जगह ये फिगर होना चाहिए, इतना प्रॉफिट है, इतना लॉस है। ये सारी फिगर्स अगर वो बिना किसी डर के, बिना अपनी नौकरी के डर के अगर पेश करता है, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्रोफेशनल। सो प्रोफेशनल रिलेशन, और बोर्ड भी इतना ओपन होना चाहिए कि लॉस तो लॉस, प्रॉफिट तो प्रॉफिट, जो सही है वही हमारे सामने आना चाहिए। सिर्फ हमें खुश करने के लिए, मतलब बोर्ड को खुश करने के लिए, अगर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कुछ मैनिपुलेशंस कर रही है, तो दैट इज नॉट 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 एट ऑल प्रोफेशनलिज्म। सो प्रोफेशनल रिलेशनशिप शुड बी मेंटेन्ड. Whatever is correct should be presented before the board. Whatever is correct will be shared by the auditor to the board. That is called as professional relationship. कि दोनों भी क्लियर है, दोनों को भी बिल्कुल डर नहीं, ऑडिटर को बिल्कुल डर नहीं है कि मेरी नौकरी चली जाएगी, मेरे को पैसा नहीं रहेगा, मेरी पोजीशन चली जाएगी, कोई डर नहीं, जो मेरा काम है वो मैंने किया, ऐसा ऐसा है, आप देखो अभी क्या कर। दैट इज प्रोफेशन. So there has to be professional relationship between the auditor and the directors of the board. Next one, the board should establish an audit committee of at least 3 non-executive directors with written terms of reference which deal clearly with its authority and duty. as I have already told you, that auditors are considered as the backbone of corporate governance, most important part of corporate governance. So Cadbury Committee, they suggested that there has to be the a separate committee that is that will be called as audit committee with at least non-executive directors who are not involved in the day-to-day functioning of the organization, who are from outside, and these this committee will check the balance sheets or all the financial details of the company. Next one, the directors should explain their responsibilities for preparing the accounts. Next, to a statement by the auditors about their reporting responsibilities. So everyone's role and responsibility should be clear, and the auditors as well as the directors, they should be clear with their role and responsibilities. अगर किसी को कोई confusion नहीं है, तो it is good corporate governance practice. If they are under some sort of confusion, it is to be sought out. Then only it can be. We can say that there exist good corporate governance practices in the organization. Next one is OECD guidelines. Now, the OECD principles have been proposed to help the governments in evaluating and improving the legal regulatory framework for corporate governance in their countries. So, it's a group of countries which frames the guidelines for the organizations. It provides guidance and recommendations to the stock exchange, investors, corporates, and other parties, and that have role in the process of developing good corporate governance. So very simple guidelines which are to be followed. Appointing majority of independent director towards better corporate governance. Very important thing. Appointing majority of independent directors. Independent directors means, just now we have discussed that non-executive directors. Non-executive directors are those directors who are not involved in the day-to-day functioning of an organization. Same is the case with the independent directors also. Independent, as the term itself signifies, independent, who are not controlled by the company. They are independent. Why they are in the organization? Because of the expertise in the field they are having. Because of that expertise, they are with the on the board of the organization, or they are being nominated by the government on the board of that particular organization. Now the next one is Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. Now OECD guidelines and the Cadbury Committee, the guidelines which we are following, that Cadbury Committee was not the committee which was formed by the government of India, or OECD guidelines. OECD guidelines are again not prepared by India. Kumar Bangalam Birla report or committee, yes, it is a committee which is constituted, which was created by the government of India, because before constituting or creating this Kumar Mangalam Birla committee, we were following the guidelines of OECD countries, as well as we were following the guidelines of Cadbury Committee. So other country has constituted the committee, and we were following the guidelines, or we can say the instructions of those committees in our country. It was later on realized that apart from those recommendations, it is not that those recommendations were not good. Why we started implementing those recommendations which were given by a committee from other country to that particular country, not to us? Why we started implementing those rules and regulations or those guidelines? Because that were found to be good practices or good recommendations. Those guidelines were considered as the best guidelines which can be implemented by any country if that country wants to make its corporate governance transparent and effective. But later on, the government thought that there has to be some changes in the existing guidelines of corporate governance. And for that, the country constituted the Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. We will stop here as only 3 minutes are remaining. In the next session, we will discuss about the Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. We will also discuss about Narayan Murthy Committee, and we will discuss about JJ Irani Committee. There we will be discussing about the recommendations of these committees for the development of corporate governance in India. How their recommendations have changed the structure of corporate governance in India. That we are going to discuss the three committees: Kumar Mangalam Committee, Narayan Murthy Committee, and JJ Irani Committee. We will be discussing in the coming session or in the next session. So thank you everyone for being present for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you,
Anand
sir.
sir, one question I have.
Yes.
सर ये लेक्चर स्वाइप हुआ था क्या? मतलब अभी नेक्स्ट हमें स्ट्रेटेजी के वाला ज्वाइन करना है ना मैम का?
Yes.
ओके ओके सर.
Yes.